Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Back to a normal, regular video. Thanks so much for everyone that joined in the live video. I thought I'd do that as I passed the 50,000 subscriber mark. And I thought it might be something a little bit different to say thanks in a way. And so many people get involved. I'm so sorry I couldn't answer all of your questions. Honestly, if anyone who was watching it towards the end would have known that, I think we finished 10 minutes into the Brazil game, and I was still answering questions or trying to wade through the questions from an hour earlier. There were that many questions. So I'm so sorry for anyone I didn't get the questions answered. But what I am going to do today, it's actually kind of another weird little landmark that I didn't even realise until I was looking earlier. I went onto my YouTube channel and I was on 199 videos. So this is my 200th video. My goodness, where has that time gone? I have no idea. Absolutely. When Spurs come into your life with the chaos they bring, apparently time flies. I have no idea, but it does. 200th video. That is absolutely mad. The amount of times I've been sitting on this sofa, chatting away, trying to work out what the hell is happening with Tottenham Hotspur. And here we are 200 videos later. So I thought what I'd do, because a lot of people had put questions underneath the previous video, and I said I'd do another Q&A. And then obviously with the live Q&A, it was questions as I was going along. People actually were putting it live during it. So I felt it's only right to kind of go back. A little bit of housekeeping first. I'm going to talk about a few Tottenham-y things that have been happening in the last couple of days. And then I'm going to launch into various questions. And yeah, we'll have a chat about all things Tottenham Hotspur as normal. So, very briefly on the England match. I don't want to really talk too much about it because it was rubbish. It was absolutely a snooze fest. It really was. I saw Harry Kane getting some criticism, and I understand, of course, he wasn't at his best, but I still felt every time pretty much he got the ball, he was still showed that he was going to have a level above lots of the players on that pitch, if not everyone. And it was a match that, yeah, USA deserved to win. I don't think there's any question about that. I thought they played well. A few players impressed. It's Tyler Adams, isn't it? The chap who's at Leeds. I thought he was very good. And I thought Weston McKennie, very good. So if you're not aware of the whole Tottenham connection with Weston McKennie, I think he's been linked again recently. You'll have heard me say this way back in videos a year ago, maybe just under a year ago. Fabio Paratici adores Weston McKennie. Brought him to Juventus from, was it Schalke? I think it was Schalke. Honestly, he thinks he's a superstar. And I certainly know that last January he had a chat with representatives of Weston McKennie to try and get the lay of the land, try and find out whether he could come, mainly I think with an eye on the summer, because at that point Weston McKennie was playing quite regularly. I think he got an injury towards the end of the season, actually, as fate would have it. He ended up missing kind of a chunk in the second half of the season because of an injury. And but yeah, from what I understand, I said this at the time, so this isn't new news before the aggregators chuck it out there. This is definitely something I said way back at the time. That, from what I understand, Fabio Paratici actually wanted Weston McKennie over Rodrigo Bentancur. But McKennie, there wasn't a chance of getting him out at that point. It's one of those funny things, isn't it? It's the way fate works. Rodrigo Bentancur has been an absolute key piece in the Tottenham jigsaw. He's been absolutely class. So it's just funny the way the world works. And it's actually, who knows? Would Weston McKennie have been better? I don't know. I mean, we can only go on what we've seen from Rodrigo Bentancur, and he's been incredible right from the start. So I wouldn't rule out Tottenham continuing to look at him, Weston McKennie. He's a good player, got a great engine, box to box, very versatile as well. They've got a lot of options in that midfield, but with his versatility, who knows if they look at him again in this upcoming window, because I do think he'd be a good player. I saw some quotes from Brad Friedel, former Spurs player, obviously, he knows his US football, being a former USA international, and he said he'd be a brilliant fit for Spurs, was his view on it. I think he said he's the best, pretty sure he said he's the best USA player right now. Obviously got Pulisic, that's a big call, but yeah, keep an eye on that one. It's probably the best thing I'd say about that. Like I say, Paratici will keep pushing his merits constantly. Conte, I'm sure, will be very well aware of him as well, playing for his former club. But yeah, it'd be an interesting one to see how that works with the 4 central midfielders already, because he doesn't really fall into that creative attacking midfielder, I'd say. Obviously, his pace, his energy, his bustling nature means he can be a threat going forward. But is he too similar to the rest? I don't know now. It'll be interesting. But keep an eye on that, honestly. Yeah, there's a lot of love for Weston McKennie from Tottenham, and especially Fabio Paratici. So yeah, I don't want to labour on that game, other than to say, yes, of course, I'm with everyone else that Phil Foden's an incredible talent, and why he didn't even get a minute, I don't understand, and why I thought England looked quite kind of fatigued at points in the second half, and why he didn't use all the subs, I don't know. It was such a shame after such a positive, bright first one, but then I guess you look at some of the results that have come out of this World Cup so far, and it makes things like a point look better. I don't think they were. I think I'm going to keep doing this because I'm so used to saying Spurs. I don't think, on paper, England should have won the game. Of course they should have. But I guess, yes, if you're looking at all the big teams, dropping points here and there, losing to teams they maybe weren't expecting to still be unbeaten, maybe isn't the worst thing in the world. And of course, barring an absolute disaster, England are kind of already through. Barring a disaster in that last game, isn't it? I think 4-0, they've got to lose, something like that. So, yeah, I'd like to see him kind of, I think, put out a reasonably strong team still. I think there's some indication that Harry Kane has said he wants to play. Of course he would. He hasn't scored yet. So if you've got any hopes of reclaiming his golden boot, he's going to start getting on that goal trail soon. And, yeah, fitness-wise, I guess he knows his body better than anyone else, I suppose. But elsewhere, of course, there it is again. I finished the video, the live video that I was doing the other day, and Richarlison then went on to have an absolutely magnificent impact. It's so great to see. What a man, though. On his Champions League debut, scores 2. On his World Cup debut, scores 2. And that's second goal. First one, poacher's effort. Second goal. Wow. I mean, the first touch, whether you'd say it's a miscontrol, whether it was meant to be, I don't know. But whatever it was, it just dollied it up perfectly for him to hit that volley. And that was an incredible volley. That, for me, that's a World Cup goal. That is, when you think of the World Cup, you think of magic moments like that. And I guess with Brazil, you think of magic moments like that. And it was quite funny because obviously people afterwards have gone on and you've seen like social media and obviously Arsenal fans with their kind of tribal nature, and I think Spurs fans would probably be the same, the other way around. The Arsenal fans have said, why isn't Gabriel Jesus playing, blah, blah, blah. And then Richarlison goes and does that, and it proves exactly why he's Brazil's number 9. Brilliant moment for him, and especially with Neymar being out the picture for, looks like, the rest of the group stage, he's really got a chance to solidify himself as the main man. And, the Brazilians love him. They love him. I think it's all wrapped up in politics as well, which I'm not going to delve into because Brazilian politics is not my area of expertise. I know you'll be shocked to know this. But what was really interesting was, I don't know why my voice got very excited there, I tweeted about his goal and suddenly had roughly 2,500 new followers from Brazil on my Twitter account. I have no idea why. It wasn't even a very good tweet. It was just me kind of doing my usual understated, that was a very decent World Cup goal kind of thing. And then, yeah, I have no idea what happened there. But my, Twitter follower account just went a bit mad for the next 48 hours or so. It was just a tweet. I don't get it, but there you go. But yeah, brilliant for Richarlison. Even Perisic played very well today. Got 2 assists for Croatia against Canada. Set up both of Kramarić's goals. And yeah, very good. And that means those 2 assists, add them onto the 7 I think he's got for Spurs as well. And actually, those 2 assists at this World Cup now mean only Lionel Messi with 12 and Cristiano Ronaldo with 10 have more goal contributions than Perisic, who's got 9 at World Cups. Players currently active in football, I should stress. There's a little caveat. Fantastic. Obviously fantastic. He's playing in a far more advanced role for his country, playing on the left of the front 3. And yeah, so it's all good. This is what we want. If anything's to come of this, we want this World Cup. We want Spurs players to be playing well, not suffer injuries, and come back absolutely full of confidence. And they will bring that into club football as well. So that's what you need. Away from the World Cup, Dane Scarlett, again, not allowed to play for Portsmouth in the FA Cup. They beat MK Dons 3-2. Strange one, that. Say strange one. I think it now definitely lends itself to Spurs thinking maybe we need him for the third round. If there's a problem, we might have to call him back at late notice in January and play him. Or perhaps they're looking at maybe giving him, another move somewhere else. We'll see. But, Danny Cowley's been raving about him midweek as well because he played in the other cup competition. Was it Trophy? I'm trying to remember what it was now. Johnson's Paint Trophy. But anyway, he scored a lovely goal. And Danny Cowley was raving about his performance and saying something about in the last 15 years he hasn't seen a defensive performance from a striker as good or something like that. There's a lot of praise, and he was saying loads of stuff about how mentally mature he is. He's got like a steel-like focus. He doesn't veer away from what he needs to do, and he thinks he's going to really fulfil his potential. So, yeah, it's a shame because Danny Cowley was saying after the last round that Spurs had told him he'd be able to play in the second round. So I don't know what's happened there. But yeah, it's clearly something's going on with Dane Scarlett in that Spurs... Maybe just an insurance policy, I guess, just in case they need to bring him back, or if they get an offer from perhaps a Championship side. Maybe he moves up. It's an interesting one. I don't know really which way it goes. I mean, he's already in League One. Portsmouth are doing all right. I think they're 7th. Would I want to chuck him into the Championship in the second half of the season? Personally, I've said in the past my connections to Danny Cowley, and I know what a good manager he is. Having seen him really kind of close up look at him when he was in non-league football, I'd stick him there. I'd keep him there because I think development-wise, I think it might be better than throwing him into the Championship already. It depends. If they've got really, really high hopes for him, maybe they think he's ready. I don't know. But yeah, it must be frustrating for Portsmouth, though. I mean, thankfully, they've won both games in the first 2 rounds, so... They've got through without him, but it's a bit of a shame for him. And the other thing I'm going to do, I thought, only because Guesty, Guesty, Rob Guest, who I do our podcast together, Golden Guest Talk Tottenham. Anyone that ever asks me, can you not put these in a podcast format? Probably because they don't want to see my face, I don't know. The reason I don't do that is because I already have a podcast with Guesty called Golden Guest Talk Tottenham. It's available on all the platforms pretty much you'd listen to a podcast on. And Guesty... I've been off the last week or so. I guess he's been working away in my absence. And he did a piece today which kind of essentially cribbed some of his work and his stats that he did. Guess he's done that to me before, so he won't mind. But what it was a little interesting thing. The 4 players that Spurs sold in the summer and how they're doing. Because I must admit, some of them I haven't really been keeping a really close eye on. So I thought maybe you guys would want to kind of know how they're doing. So... First off, Steven Bergwijn, of course, went to Ajax in the summer. He's played 1,687 minutes. He's 11 goals from 21 games in all competitions, 3 assists as well. He scored in the Champions League against Rangers and Napoli, netted a hat-trick in the Eredivisie in his second game for Ajax as he beat Groningen, and obviously started in both of the Netherlands World Cup games as well. So... Going really well for Steven Bergwijn. I'm really happy for him. I would have loved for it to work out at Spurs for him, but unfortunately just didn't. But yeah, high hopes for Steven Bergwijn because I do think there's a hell of a lot of talent in there. Next one, Cameron Carter-Vickers. Again, lots of minutes, 1,620 he's played. Obviously signed for Celtic in the summer after a very successful loan move. Continued to be a regular in the Scottish Premiership, in Europe as well. Missed a couple of games in October with an injury. And he missed the game away in the Champions League against Real Madrid, which they lost 5-1. But he has actually captained Celtic a couple of times in their home games against Leipzig and Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League. 24-year-old as well. And he's also worn the armband in 7 league fixtures because Callum McGregor's been injured. So that's massive for him. 24 years old, and he's already been chosen to be the captain of Celtic for 9 matches this season. Very cool indeed. I think he's one of those who will go on to have a very good career. He got a little bit of... We do this, don't we? As fans, as journalists sometimes as well. We have a kind of homegrown product. And if we believe that they don't reach the target or the standard required, that's it. They never can. And sometimes these young players, they almost have to go away to kind of rebuild themselves. And I think we're seeing that with a lot of players at Tottenham. It's I don't know. Is it a damning indictment of the pathway for players? I don't know. Is it something to do with the coaching at a certain age? I don't know. But, Cameron Carter-Vickers has gone away, gone back to Celtic, rebuilt himself very much. He's only 24, so, how much rebuilding you can do at that age. But, I think I wouldn't be stunned if we see him in the Premier League. I know Premier League clubs were looking at him before he went to Celtic. So I think he'll end up back in the Premier League, and fair play to him. Like I say, Steven Bergwijn, again, really, I think he'll be back in the Premier League as well. I'd be stunned if he's not. And then another chap, young man who's actually gone away and done really well as well, is Jack Clarke. Again, much maligned because obviously really wasn't getting many chances, didn't look to be at the level that Spurs required. Gone to Sunderland. I know obviously it's in a slightly lower division, but it is a championship. He helped them get promoted, didn't he, last season? Played 1,671 minutes for them this season. And 4 goals, 6 assists. So 10 goal involvements already for Sunderland this season. Scored an outstanding team goal against Reading. I remember seeing that one. That was a cracker as well. He's doing really well, which is great. It's what rhythm does to your game, isn't it? It's playing constantly. That's what does it. And, I really hope he does well, especially for Spurs. If he does well, it would be good as well, because there's a various kind of add-ons and stuff that I think take it up to about 10 million if he plays well. So Spurs will want him to do well as well. And the other one, who hasn't played as much, Keon Etete, went to Cardiff City. He's only played 143 minutes. Obviously, had some terrific loans last season at Northampton Town, Cheltenham Town. Did very well, big striker. I was a bit disappointed, I must admit, to see him leave permanently in the summer. But he did. He headed off to Cardiff on a 3-year deal. He's had 9 appearances, all from the bench. 1 substitute appearance in the Carabao Cup as well. And it's now just him, I guess, adjusting to a new league, really. I don't think... it's his first time in a championship as well. So, getting used to that for him. He's only 20. Big lad. Again, keep an eye on Keon Etete. Very, very good feet. A little bit about him, the way he plays. Great technique for a big man. The old cliche, good feet for a big man. Keep an eye on him. So, just thought it was a little insight. Guesty kind of did all the hard work, to be fair to him. But it was something I was going to look at some point. But as he'd done it, I thought... I'll use Guesty's stats essentially that he'd looked into, as I guess I would, if I was looking at Opta and all that. Don't have to compare Guesty to Opta, he'll probably like that. There you go. That was the kind of the little roundup I wanted to do. So let's launch into some questions. The first one from Mike Spurs 3203. What did you think about Richarlison's goals? Hope you can start playing and scoring like that for Spurs. It's all part of the process. Again, rhythm, sharpness, get himself going. I think he looked good at times for Spurs. I don't think he really had hit his rhythm yet. And I think this World Cup, again, will do wonders for him. Just steer clear of injury, come back. And like I said, I think in the live video, I'd be intrigued to see kind of how he works as a striker up there, be it with Harry Kane, be it with Sonny. I think, in a front pairing, I'd be intrigued to see how that works in a slightly different formation. What else we got? That's a very long one. Is that a question? No, it's not. Get to the end of it. It wasn't even a question. I don't know the answer to this one. I can see it already. Very long username. Sorry, it's like user and lots of letters and numbers. Making my first pilgrimage from the US to see Spurs in February or March. You're a big part of my routine of following the club. I enjoy your work immensely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Non-football question. What's a really good Indian restaurant in London? Doesn't need to be fancy, just something the local residents frequent and enjoy. That's probably not one for me. I don't think I've had an Indian meal. I don't think, certainly in the Tottenham area. Maybe not even in London. I normally eat local if I have an Indian. So I'll leave that to other people. If other people want to put that in the comments, you go for it. Help out. User -ZX3XZ9WT8C. There you go. Said the whole thing. Right, next one. Bashir Gear 5694 asks, wondering what your favourite place has been that you've travelled to either with Tottenham or on a holiday. Well, let's keep it to Spurs. South Korea was amazing this summer. It was an incredible experience. Absolutely incredible. South Korean people, the Korean people are just wonderful. The nicest people. They were so kind to me, so nice. And yeah, Sungmo Lee, my journalist friend, he, if you didn't see the videos at the time or things I put on social media, very much gave me a great experience of life in South Korea. I didn't eat anything but Korean food. So I didn't eat really any Western food whatsoever, just ate Korean food. Took me all the places, ate the kind of exact meals that he and his fellow Koreans would eat, and it was brilliant. Honestly, incredible experience, incredible place. I've been very fortunate in the past with Spurs' tours often have taken us to some great places. Shanghai, Singapore, Nashville. Oh, I love Nashville. Nashville was amazing. All over America, Orlando, Minneapolis, New York, San Diego, LA. Very, very fortunate with the places we've gone with Spurs. I'm trying to think if I've missed anyone out there. I don't think so. No. Yeah, very, very fortunate. Great part of the job. And I'd love seeing how football fandom, especially Spurs fandom, is in other countries, because they are as, if not more, passionate about the team. Just, I always say this, distance doesn't dictate how much of a fan you are. It really doesn't. If anything, it's probably more impressive when fans from so far abroad get to come to the games. So yeah, seems like it's back to America this summer. So yeah, I don't exactly know where yet, but I'm intrigued to see where they're going this time around. Let's have a look. What else we got? The Josh Yuko asked, would you consider doing player ratings for the England matches? No, I probably will stick to Spurs, I think. When it's England, it's nice to kind of just sit back and just watch it. Or maybe not the other night, but you know what I mean. Bell Atkins 1169 asks, what kind of music do you like? Quite an eclectic mix, really. Bit of everything. Because I think I might have said this before, because my dad was quite a bit older than my mum. So his musical tastes were more old school. So they were like Sinatra and the crooners and stuff like that. Whereas my mum was really into Elvis, bit of Beatles stuff as well. So I kind of had a background with all of that kind of music in the house. And then my own, obviously, listened to more modern music and stuff. So, yeah, I think my youngest, she always says she enjoys being in my car with the playlist that can come on, because I don't actually do a playlist. I just do all my music, essentially, anything I've got on Spotify, and it can just give you anything at any time. It can give you any kind of era, any kind of genre. It could even give you movie themes. It could be anything. And yeah, she quite enjoys the random nature of it, whereas my wife likes more of a modern music with a beat, I think is probably the best way to put it. She's really liking a lot of Latin-y kind of music at the moment as well, whereas yeah, mine's probably slightly wider scope, perhaps. Tony McMillan asks, any players caught your eye during this World Cup, and whether our club would be interested? I think Weston McKennie was a great shout. I do think he'd be good. Whether does he fit into this current Spurs squad? Yes. Would it be a bit packed and do 5 into often 2 places fit? Probably not. You would have to switch to a 3-5-2, I think, with it. But yeah, I was just watching the Germany-Spain game. Of course, Dani Olmo always pops up. Spurs have looked at him in the past, and again, he looked very promising as well. So, yeah, there's a few players. I'm intrigued to see how it goes on, though. I don't like to judge them all on one match. I want to see kind of a bit more on how they get on. I know we're starting to get into the second matches now. Good question. James Muatz 793 asked, did the Spurs tour last weekend? I asked the guide which seat you sat in. He said I was the first person to ever ask, is it 17 or did he lie? Ooh, good question. But first off, yeah, you're not the first person to ask, because I have had a fair few people say that they asked. And I've also had a few of the guides have told me that they've been asked, which is always so weird. It's lovely, but it's just weird to kind of comprehend. It is often 17. It's normally around, what am I, F16 and F17 are normally the ones I'm on when I'm in the press box, which is, to the kind of up to the left of the dugouts. If you're kind of looking at the dugouts, it's normally F16 or 17, around there, I think. It can change depending on the game, but often I'm situated around that area. And then when it's in the press conference room downstairs in the stadium, which sometimes people like to sit in and send me photos on Twitter of them sitting in what they're told is my seat, I'm often in the middle of the front row, just purely because people seem to leave that as a space, whereas I don't mind sitting in the front. And often it's nice to be able to chat to Antonio, ask him questions and be kind of right in his eye line. But occasionally I will just sit right off to the right. At Hotspur Way, I always sit on the right of normally the second row, sometimes first row, but that's purely because they've got power sockets on the wall. So it's a very practical reason. But yeah, that is Spurs tour. I might actually be doing that myself. I was thinking of maybe taking my father-in-law to do that, which would be very weird, doing the tour of areas that I kind of get to see. But I think he'll quite like it. So that'll be a bit weird one. Maybe I'll ask the guide if he knows where Alistair Gold sits. That would be weird, especially if he didn't know who I was. Andrew Gregory 1543, love the live Q&A, Ali. I will do another one at some point. I'll try and kind of intersperse them every so often, because I did enjoy it. It was good fun. The first minute was a bit like, oh, there's only one person online. Is this actually working? And then suddenly, within 20 seconds, it like jumped up to about 350. And then we had a kind of a constant about 750 people on it, which was really good. Bearing in mind it was an hour and 10. It was really nice to keep that kind of thing. And I think maybe the more people know, I probably didn't advertise it well enough. So, probably get bigger numbers than that. So I will do it again. I don't know how it worked. I mean, you people can tell me. I don't know how it worked as then being put on as a video afterwards for anyone that wasn't there during the live nature of it. I don't know whether it was a high quality standard definition or HD. I don't know what it looked like really. I watched the very start of it, but I don't know obviously how the entire rest of the video looked and whether it worked. I don't know. Please do let me know. Sorry, rest of Andrew's question. Have you ever asked for an interview with Daniel Levy, and what would you ask him? I've asked lots of times. We all have. He doesn't like to do too many interviews, of course. He does one once in a blue moon. Sat in a couple of press conferences that he's done, one at the stadium, one out in Shanghai, it was. I was going to say Singapore, but it was Shanghai. It was the AIA renewal deal. But yeah, I'll keep asking. I'll get it eventually. And what would I ask him? I'd like to really kind of dive quite deep into the criticism side of things and how he copes with that. Does it affect him? I'm intrigued to know that. And of course, I'd like to know really what he makes of course, off the pitch. I do think Spurs have been, they've grown. Of course they have. But I'd be intrigued to know from his perspective what one trophy in his entire tenure. I'd be intrigued to know what kind of he makes that and how frustrated, because he must be frustrated with that. He can't see that as, oh, well, we've made everything else bigger. There must be a big source of frustration, because otherwise he wouldn't be sacking as many managers as he has over the years. So, yeah, I think that's probably what I'd ask. Maybe that's why I don't get an interview with him. I don't know. There's a lot of... It's a constant process of asking for interviews at Spurs and see who we get. I think I've been trying to get a Paratici interview from the moment, before he even walked in the door, and I keep being promised that one, so it will happen at some point. But yeah, now Daniel Levy, he'd be interesting. Like I say, I can't remember if I said this or not. I think I did. When we were in Korea, we sat down having at lunch at one point, talking to a couple of the staff, and Todd Klein came up, the Chief Commercial Officer, and lovely chap, sat there for a long, long time just chatting away. And Daniel Levy did come along and sit down and talk a little bit. Obviously, it was one of those where it wasn't an interview, and it was almost like the shock of having him there, someone that doesn't really mix with the media. You kind of didn't almost want to scare him away. So yeah, the chat was quite general. But yeah, maybe the fact that I think he knows who I am. I certainly know. I remember an article. I can't remember what it was, but I remember he wasn't happy with an article I did a couple of years back. And there's been the club haven't been happy with certain pieces I've written that's been told to me, but I would never change an article anyway. And I think the indication was it would come from the top. It might not have been. That might have just been a little tactic to try and make me, I don't know, think twice or change it again. But that's not what journalism is. Journalism, we don't write anything based on, are we worried about this? Are we worried about upsetting that person? As long as you do your job diligently and you write what you believe is to be the truth and double check it, triple check it, then yeah, that's what you do. But yeah, no, it'd be a fascinating interview. I think I'd like to kind of extract the real Daniel Levy and actually see what he's like away from the press conference, kind of quite almost bland interviews. I actually feel he comes across more interestingly in the minutes for the supporters trust meetings. I'd love to kind of be able to sit in on one of those and talk to him about stuff, because he does seem to be quite honest and upfront. Obviously the minutes, I think the club have to check them, so they may not be, there's some bits in them that maybe have to be held out for various operational reasons, financial reasons, I don't know. But yeah, I'd be intrigued to see what he's like if you can get him relaxed. Whether he ever would be with me, I don't know, in the media in general. What else we got? Calasiso asks, do you think Sergio Reguilon will do better than Ryan Sessegnon as the left wing back? I don't feel that Ryan brings much value to the team playing in that position. I think he does. I think Ryan Sessegnon is very young. I think I said this in the live, so I probably don't want to repeat this too much. But for me, I really thought Reguilon would be a great wing back. Didn't work out for some reason. Just for some unknown reason, he seemed to have all the attributes to play in the role, but just didn't work. Whereas I think Ryan Sessegnon has really, he's played as a left back, he's played as a left winger. I think he could be brilliant, and Conte agrees. It's just a case of educating now and learning the Conte way. And I honestly, I'm intrigued to see. I'm using intrigued a lot as well. I'm interested to see how the battle next season will work, with 3 people fighting out, with Destiny Udogie coming along as well as obviously Perisic. So I think Sessegnon's the one under pressure this season. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Naz Dukes asks, why is Emerson not being tried at right centre-back? Can they just not sign a right-sided centre-back? I'm not a massive fan of people crowbarred into positions that aren't theirs. I just kind of feel, why not just sign someone that naturally plays in that? So I would probably suggest that's maybe something that Conte just hasn't really got an interest in doing. He does it in the first game when we come back. Peter Gray 21 asks, if they were to make a movie of these Spurs times, who do you think would play Harry Kane, Conte and Levy? My thoughts are Ryan Reynolds, a younger Al Pacino, and Danny DeVito playing a fun-to-watch Daniel Levy. I love Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito's class. I really like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and he is magnificent in that show. Harry Kane. Well, Ryan Reynolds does know a bit more about football now, with being the Wrexham owner or joint owner with Rob McElhenney. McElhenney. Should know, as he's in Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I'll take Ryan Reynolds. I think Harry Kane would be probably very happy with that comparison. Conte, a younger Al Pacino. Do you know what? I'm going to go with your suggestions because they're quite fun. Yeah, I'll go with them. I know it's lazy, but I actually really like your suggestions. Let's go with them. Rob McDonald says, do you think the change in Joe Rodon's homegrown status will impact whether Spurs try and bring him back after his loan? I don't think so. Probably not. Especially as they can buy him if they want Ren at the end of it. So probably not. Philip Gomez asks, are we getting Jude Bellingham? No, I don't think so. Unless a miracle happened, the world's best top clubs are going to be fighting out for him, I think. And he'll have his pick of them. I'd love to see him at Spurs. I'm sure Spurs would love to see him at Spurs, but you'd imagine he'll go to one of the biggest. Zaki Jaffrey 4787 asks, "What do you feel the club's plan is with Harvey White? Seems to be at an age now where he needs to be playing first team football, but is being kept at the club instead. I personally like him. Would love to see him go out on loan. And lastly, what do you think the future holds for him at Spurs?" Yeah, I like Harvey. I think he's a really good young player. Again, another versatile player, very talented, brilliant set pieces. I get the impression... No, that's not fair. I'm going to say I get the impression. It's more opinion, I think, that it's going to be tough for him to break through. He's had to be so patient. All of last season, he had loads of appearances on the bench without ever coming on. Hasn't had a minute under Conte. Conte keeps name-checking him and giving him a little praise, but doesn't ever use him. I think send him out on loan in January. I think you have to. I really think you have to. Obviously, it's difficult because, Pape Matar Sarr obviously played in this World Cup, got off the bench as well. I think probably needs exactly the same. And it's, can you allow both of them to go out? Very difficult. What else we got? Oh, Tim Holt, 1334. Who would win in a foot race, Prime Bale or Prime Walker? Oh, that's a tough one. In my mind, and this could just be perception rather than reality, for me it felt like Bale was quicker over a longer distance and Walker was instantly accelerating. So yeah, I'd maybe say over a short distance I'd go for Walker, but maybe longer Bale. But to be honest, I've seen Walker sprint up the entire length of the pitch as well. I think that would be a very tight one. Maybe Walker would win a shorter race perhaps. Rich R 9981, favourite movie with Nicolas Cage. God, there were so many, weren't there? I know it's like kind of pulpy, kind of. Was it Michael Bay? No, it wasn't Michael Bay. It was. Oh, I forgot his name now. Was it Simon West, the director? I can't remember his name was. Con Air. I used to love Con Air as a film. It was, it was like kind of not trashy action, but it was just real actiony kind of film. But he's been so good in so many things. I'm going to go with that. It's probably not, his greatest acting performance. He's obviously had far weightier acting performances, but I just, when I was younger, I used to really like that film. It's fantastic. John Malkovich, John Cusack. Really, really good film, that one. Good fun. Let's have a look. Long Check Joanne 9121. House of Dragon or Rings of Power, or did you like them both? I like them both. I did. Both in different ways. Probably Rings of Power, the more amazing looking series. House of Dragon, probably a bit more that Game of Thrones kind of twists and turns and all that sort of stuff, and grubbiness that happens in the dark side of that. But Rings of Power, some nice little twists. I like them both. Looking forward to both of their second seasons, actually. What else we got here? Right. Trying to remember if some of these I've answered or not. I'm going to try. If anything sounds slightly familiar, I'll try to steer clear of it. So apologies to anyone. I'm not ignoring your question because I don't like it, but it might be something I've spoken about recently, so I don't really want to tread over old ground. Noah Barbosa 6949 asks, if you could steal and start any player from one of Spurs' London rivals, who would it be? Asking him because I had this conversation with one of my friends who supports Chelsea. Ooh, who have you got at the moment? That's a good question. Oh, it's a tough one. It is a really tough one because it's about space, isn't it? Because I really like Saka. I think Saka is absolutely brilliant at Arsenal. I think he's such a good young player. But is he someone that Spurs desperately need? I mean, he'd be a great alternative. Yeah, I'm going to go for Saka. I am. I don't think Chelsea have got a few, certainly at the back, that I would like. But I think I'm going to have for Saka because I keep saying that Spurs need an alternative to switch with Kulusevski. So, I'll go for Saka. What else we got? What else we got? Because someone asked me a question about trying to remain professional. Do I stop being a fan, I guess, when I go to Spurs matches? And Mike Naylor 8542 says, "Are you really saying that you didn't jump up and scream when Lucas Moura scored to put Ajax out of the Champions League and make the final? I couldn't have done that." I didn't. I remember saying yes very loudly while trying to type it up. And I've said this before if anyone's heard me say this, but it was just bewilderment. We had beer raining down on us from the angry Ajax fans above. And loads of people's laptops started to go wrong. I lost a couple of keys on mine, started to go wrong because all the water or the liquid, the beer had got in them. And I just had this little moment that it won't have even registered for him. But as I was walking down from the press box to going down towards the press conference, I saw Jermaine Genius, who I've never spoken to before in my life, and I haven't since that moment. And we just kind of were coming towards each other, going in different directions. And we just both looked at each other, just like, whew. And I just said, "That was not too shabby, was it?" And he said, "It was definitely not." And that was it. It's like the only little kind of exchange I've ever had with Jermaine Genius. Just two people, clearly with an affection for Tottenham Hotspur, let's put it that way, just still trying to take in everything that had just happened. So no, I didn't jump up and scream. I said this before, but there are a lot of journalists at other who cover other clubs that do go absolutely mad, and it's not for me. I get the excitement, and I get getting carried away with stuff, but I think as journalists we're meant to kind of remain as objective as possible. It's just, I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just not what I would do. Although yes, it can be quite difficult at times when you're really kind of getting into the game and the emotions of it all. Philip Sergio 3068, not really Spurs related, but what is your opinion on Sporting? Young coach with potential, young talented technical squad, 3-4-3 football. They really impressed me during our 2 games this season. I feel like they're a team we could take notes from. Yeah, Ruben Amorim, I think, is going to be a Premier League manager before too long, if not one of the other major leagues. He's very talented guy, very interesting in his press conferences as well. Really kind of gets into stuff, a little bit of the tactical side. I found him fascinating. Sometimes it sounds awful to say, but I am kind of focusing on writing post-match stuff. So sometimes, especially after a game, you can zone out a little bit when the opposition manager's speaking, mostly because you're already writing stuff. But with him, I was absolutely kind of switched on. I found him a really charismatic guy, really interesting. So, yeah, no, they are definitely a kind of a team on the up. Very good coach. And of course, Marcus Edwards rapidly improving there as well. Croucher James says, Poch has been linked to the England job. I was wondering your thoughts. I think he thrives on training with the players every day, so that's a negative, but his style of play could be a good fit. I think he'd be a good fit. I do. I think kind of mentality-wise to it, I think he'd be very good. But I agree with you. I do think he would miss the day-to-day stuff of football. He is clearly holding out for the right job. Is that the right job for him? For me, I'd probably say not. But I do think he'd be very good at it. But I don't know if it would be the best job for him. I think he's quite young for that job myself. Croucher Jones for another one. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Personally, I would love for you to carry on, as I really enjoy your views, and it does feel like you have a real following now as well, but I was wondering if you have any personal goals career-wise. It's an interesting one because I've done it the other way round, in terms of I've done all the management stuff. I was in the local newspaper industry, and at one point I'd got myself up to the position of being a group sports editor, so I was editing and essentially, I was in charge of, what do we have at one point? Up to about 14, 15 different editions of various newspapers across Hertfordshire, Essex, and further afield as well. And yeah, so I've kind of done all that. I've been a boss, as it were. I've been the guy that rushing to deadlines, fitting pages together, subbing them, designing them. I've done all of that as well. So it's quite nice now that almost like, I guess I found a lane that I'm enjoying driving down. I do love covering Spurs as much as it is a absolute crazy mess at times, but I do love it. I love the relationships I form within it. This has been an unexpected bonus as well, being able to do these videos and talking to people and the cathartic side of it as well. So I must admit, I haven't probably looked too far down. 5 years, I'd probably still be looking at doing what I'm doing. Further down the line, I do like the travel stuff. I do like that. Whether I look back kind of into travel writing at some point and maybe do something like that, combining it with some travel vlogs and things like that, perhaps. There's a little part of me that does like the idea of maybe absolutely starting afresh and covering a new club in a different part of the world. I must admit, when I saw Beckham was starting up into Miami, there was a little bit of a thought of, oh, that would be quite a fascinating experience to cover a club from its inception, So that, and obviously Miami's not too shabby. But it was just too early, and I was obviously really enjoying the world of Spurs. It would have been a very, very big move at that time. So yeah, the distant future, maybe. I don't want to just stick around and bore people, which maybe some might say I'm already doing that. I don't know. We'll see. I don't really kind of have, any ambitions to kind of take it on a more general field, really, covering like general football. I have, people very kindly from various radio stations, TV and stuff like that have asked me to come on and do stuff, and it's not really, I think, something that I'm desperate to do. Did a fair bit of kind of radio stuff to begin with when I was starting out, and I'll still go on the odd show for people, but it sounds awful to say, and it sounds as though I'm trying to be big-headed, and I'm not. I wouldn't, if I say yes, it's not really for me. It's kind of to help them out with their thing. I was gutted. I was off, and I saw that Radio 4 had asked me to do some bits for a piece I did on Gareth Bale. I didn't see the email until it was too late. Like that I would have done, because it's kind of a very cool thing for them to be able to put together and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think I have any kind of ambitions to go into a general area when it comes to football. But I think because I'm so Spurs focused, I don't know whether I'd enjoy that as much. I do take quite a bit of pleasure from getting in behind the curtain of the club that obviously I've loved since I was a kid. So yeah, hopefully that answers it in a kind of a roundabouty way. What else we got? Pete Blue asked, would I do a live stream to reach 50,000? I did. Rye3B asked, can you elaborate what it means when a player and team are discussing personal terms? What is included? It's everything. I know this sounds a really silly, simplistic way of saying it, but if you play Football Manager is very good at representing a lot of the kind of nitty-gritty of when it comes to personal terms. It's fleshing out the contract stuff. It's fleshing out every single aspect of that as well. It can also be discussing their role within the team, like I've just talked about, where they see themselves in 2, 3, 5 years' time, or even just next season at the club, and what the manager sees for them. It can be about setting up the early threads of accommodation where they'll live and things like that. And it's kind of all of that, really. Mostly financial stuff, but it's a whole big old bit. And obviously the agents and intermediaries will deal with a lot of that, and they'll come to the player, and the player will say yes or no when they're able to, because a lot of stuff has to go through these intermediaries, really. Ben Jones 1082 asks, I feel like Duel of the Fates has sort of lost its effect as our walkout song now, so what other movie soundtrack song would you like to see the players walk out to? I really like Duel of the Fates. It isn't really played all the time at the moment. They've kind of got the Metallica song sometimes at the moment, which I like the song. I don't really feel it kind of builds up. I didn't like the whole experiment with Can't Smile Without You. I didn't feel that worked at all. Great song. I love it when the away fans sing it. It's haunting, amazing sound. But as a build-up song, I didn't feel it was really doing its job. I liked Duel of the Fates. I did. I probably wouldn't deviate from it. I like it. I think it's. I think when it kind of got me kind of buzzing about the match to come. I would imagine it would have, certainly for some players, it would have. Greg Sargent, what is Tottenham's transfer priority this summer? As I said before, pretty certain is going to be an attacking midfielder. I'd hope, and I get the impression it would be likely someone that could play deeper but also further up the pitch. And I'm sure they'll look at another centre-back. Essentially, they've got to pretty much replace Brian Hill and Japhet Tanganga, who are likely, you'd think, go out on loan. Another user number, user-en3xe2cj5y. Was that the same one? I can't remember. Has your family got used to your celebrity status? I'm not a celebrity. I'm really not. No, just get the odd Spurs fan will recognise me when I'm out and about, which is very nice. Normally we just have a chat. Yeah, it's all good, but definitely not a celebrity. I won't be in the jungle anytime soon. Definitely not. Although we were talking about this. It was my youngest daughter's birthday this week. She's away at uni, so we went out for a kind of like an early birthday, like a Sunday roast, and we were actually talking about who'd be best at all of that. And I think the consensus was that I'd be quite good at the trials because I'm not really squeamish. I'm not, creepy crawlies, bugs, snakes, and all that. I'm not really fussed by that. So, or heights or anything like that. So, I think trial-wise, I'd probably be all right. I might struggle a bit with just rice and beans. As you can tell, I quite enjoy my food. So that probably would be my biggest struggle. But trials, I think I'd be okay. But I don't know why I'm talking about that, because I'm certainly never going to be a celebrity. What else we got here? Daniel Harris, can you see Reguilon getting back into the Spurs team? I don't think so. Unless there was a change of manager and he came back. It happened to be someone that, he was able to get back in. I don't think so. I'd struggle to see it under Conte, is probably the best way to put it. It's Phil from Tuesday, 8677. Have you ever been in a press conference with a journo who's retiring soon or moving on from the sport and they've just gone rogue and asked loads of crazy or touchy questions? No, I think we've all asked touchy questions at times. Sometimes we kind of press managers when they don't like to be pressed. Poch I'd wound up a couple of times. I know that, because especially tactical stuff, he didn't really want to explain himself too much. I don't think, and we've had some weird, like, European press conferences. There's been times when the foreign journos will ask some quite random things. I remember there was one they were asking a Poch about who had the best hair in the Spurs squad. I can't remember. There was another one that was a bit of a random question as well. So you get some quite funny ones in those ones. But no, I wouldn't say anyone's gone really rogue. I think I've said this before. There's this kind of idea that you're going to get banned from the next press conference if you ask something a bit tough. It's not. We do ask tough questions. We just have to phrase it in a different way to how fans would probably ask the questions. What else we go? Views on the new Black Panther films. I asked B Hayes 8499. I haven't seen it yet. I'm hoping to see it this week. I might actually have to go on my own. I think I will. I haven't done that in a long time, but I might have to, just to fit it in, because I've got a few more days off this week. Is Longley going to stay longer at the club? Ask Kumo Pelotona 3507. Longley, depends. Depends really on how he performs the second half of the season and then what his value is accordingly, because Spurs did not get that option to buy in there. And what do you think of Hakim Ziyech being a replacement for Kulu? Alternative, it means. Would Chelsea sell him? I always see Spurs linked with Chelsea players, and I just can't imagine Chelsea selling to Spurs. Whether new owners, it's a bit different, but it would seem mad to strengthen a team that is directly competing with you. And Spurs are ahead of Chelsea in the table right now, so I don't know why you'd give them some of your players that might make them a better squad. I wouldn't do it myself. What else we got here? Simon Craig's 6253. Do you worry about the drop in defensive ability when we play lots of fixtures? The players shouldn't need constant coaching and micromanaging, should they? In the Conte way, maybe. It does like to prepare them in certain ways for certain opposition. And I do think they miss something when they're not able to do that. Yes, you can fine-tune as a defence, but I also think it's the midfield. I think we look at defensive. Mourinho had this big thing called, what was it called? The defensive... Oh, I can't remember what it was called. He had this thing when he would tell off anyone that would call him the call about the defence when talking about something, and he would call it something like the defensive setup. I can't remember what the expression was. And I remember using his expression. He was like, thank you. When I said it, it was a weird moment. And yeah, so it's not just about the back three or back five. It's also about what the midfielders do. So I do think the coaching plays a part. Otherwise, what's the point in coaches, I guess? Mark Trower 2267 asks, you're trapped in a lift. What two players and any manager or coach, old or new, would be your dream and nightmare? Dream were two players. Old or new, that's interesting. Gary Lineker was always one of my heroes as a kid. So Gary Lineker I'd pick. I think it'd be quite interesting. Gaza, when he was, in his prime, would have been great as well. I think it'd be great fun in there. And obviously you'd have Lineker in there to keep an eye on him. Managers, dream would probably be, obviously you'd love to speak to someone like Bill Nick. Obviously if you can have names from the past, people that obviously aren't with us anymore, I'd love to talk to Bill Nicholson. That would be amazing. Arthur Rowe, to talk about the whole push and run element of stuff. Obviously we've got Martin Joel is one of my favourites. Had a good relationship with him over the years. Nightmare would probably be Nuno in terms of I don't think we'd have a lot of talking to do. Although maybe some people have said away from the cameras. He is actually quite an interesting chap, so maybe he wouldn't be such a nightmare. Yeah, I'll go with that. What else we got? Harvey Fuqua 6633 was Udogi signed with Conte's blessings? I'm sure he would have done. If it's an Italian player playing in Serie A, you're pretty certain it will be with Conte's blessing. What else we got? I've kind of answered that one before, so I probably don't want to go too much down that as well. IQ Jump 123 asks, do you create your own titles of your articles? I presume you mean headlines, or does your publisher or someone else come up with the headlines? Depends. Sometimes me, sometimes the website chaps. It depends. Sometimes, unfortunately, in today's world, there's a lot of stuff to do with kind of driving the Google search and things like that. So there's key names. It's such a world away from when I would work on newspapers. Of course, we'd put out a headline and it would be something with like a pun or alliteration. It would be something that had to also fit a gap. Whereas now there's still a kind of a character limit, but often it's about the SEO. It's about driving the search engine optimization and getting people, I guess, into your articles because it's such a competitive, saturated market. Getting eyes on your stories. So yeah, the headlines it veers. Sometimes it might be something that I put on there. Often with my talking points, it's often more mine then. But sometimes when it's shorter stuff, the guys on the website will want to kind of have their say on what will bring in more traffic. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's the way of the world. We've got to do the job, and the more people that read it, I guess. Obviously, I don't ever want headlines that bring in people through duplicitous means. There's always got to be a headline that does actually fit what you're writing. Otherwise, I don't like the naughty kind of ones. I see some absolutely ropey ones when I kind of cast my eye down News Now. Some very strange way to... And you click on it, it's just like, that's not even anything to do with the headline you've put. So, yeah, we try not to do that sort of stuff. It's not right. Beatch, which I'm not saying because it sounds a little bit iffy. If you had to spend a week in Disney World, Florida with 3 Spurs players, who would they be and why? Okay, so I'm going to go with current lot for this. Sonny, because he would be a brilliant laugh. He'd be great fun. Can you imagine going on the rides with Sonny? It'd be fantastic. I think I'd pick Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer I find fascinating. Such a clever guy. I think he'd be a really interesting companion on something like that. In the moments, because there's a lot of queuing in Disney World, in the queues, I think you could have some really interesting conversations with him. Who else would I pick? I think Heung-min Paratici is probably a little bit too intense. They might overanalyze slightly. I do like Ben Davies. He's the nicest man. Kulusevski's very honest. Maybe go for Kulusevski. Having interviewed him a few times, he's very, very straight talking and seems like a good all-round bloke. There's a few. I could name a few. Harry Kane, I think, would be good as well, away from the cameras and not with media-trained answers as well. So, yeah, plenty of players in there, to be honest. I can't remember if I answered this one before or not. Phil Tang, 1942. Do the team watch a full replay of all their games? I think they'll certainly watch sections. I think Conte and his coaches will bring out areas that they really want them to focus on, where it went wrong, what they can improve. Essentially, if you just watch maybe the whole thing, you might zone out. Whereas if he gives them specific moments that are really get cut to the core of what they need to improve, I'm pretty sure that's how they do it. What else we got? Oliver James 9922. Do you follow any other content creators about Spurs? No, I don't think so. No, I've explained this one before. Sorry for anyone that's heard this before, but essentially, in my spare time, I try to kind of veer away from more Spurs stuff and even football stuff, to be honest with you, because my job is so Tottenham Hotspur and football based a lot of the time, and even on my days off, I'll do these videos as well. So when I'm kind of getting away and have a bit of spare time, I'll more likely to kind of listen to or watch things about movies. Podcasts are the same, more about TV shows. I'm actually working my way back through Office Ladies podcast, which is really good. I'm way behind because I've only just I think I'm in the second series now. The amount of detail and research they put into that. The two ladies play Pam and Angela. Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey, isn't it? They're so good. They're such a really well-researched podcast. Talking Sopranos podcast, listen to that as well. That was brilliant. Got to the end of that. Victory podcast, which is all about Entourage, which I used to adore that show as well when I was younger. So that's kind of what I do. And YouTube's a bit the same. I'm more likely to watch stuff about movies, to be honest with you. And this is the other thing, obviously. I suppose the thing that maybe makes me slightly different, this isn't advertising or saying I'm better in any way, but I think the only thing that makes me different maybe is I guess because I'm a journalist. So I look at it in a different way. And obviously I've got this this access to be able to speak to managers and players and know things going on behind the scenes. So I think I can get enough of a grasp of what fans make of everything from social media, from I guess Reddit is another one as well. I can kind of get a grasp of what people are thinking and what they'd like me to ask and what I should look into really to be able to give the fans answers. So I don't really need to watch kind of YouTube videos of that as well. That's not to say they're not brilliant. I know there's a lot of people out there that do fan YouTube videos of different kinds of stuff, and I'm sure they're all really, really, really good. And provide a brilliant service to other fans as well. Because sometimes that's what you want to do as well. You want to listen to another fan's views on the games. You want to hear what their thoughts are. Do they match your own? Does it get you thinking about something else as well? And, fair play to all of them. They're all very, very good. But yeah, I'm just, like I say, my spare time is more normally movie-based and stuff like that, or TV and stuff like that. Right, okay, I'm going to probably wrap this up in a moment. What else we got here? Some more. TNTO 7099. How would it work with new players signed in January? Would they be cup tied in the Champions League? No, it doesn't work that way anymore. They're not actually. They can. It's almost like they get a bit of a free pass. I think you're allowed up to 3 to register. Daniel Eck 854. What are your thoughts on goalkeepers still dragging out time after a yellow since they never get red carded? Will it ever change? I don't think so. It's very frustrating. I often say this to the other journos. We'll get the yellow card around the 80 to 85 minutes, and that'll be it. They'll never get sent off. I'm quite enjoying the World Cup ways of having these massive amounts of extra time on the end. I don't think, from what we understand, it's going to come into the Premier League. But I like the idea of it. It certainly kind of stops some time wasting. To a degree, there's still an element of it in there. But yeah, I don't think it's ever going to change time wasting goalkeepers. Callum Modelling 1524. Do you feel like the only way Spurs can win big honours is a takeover like Man City and recently like Newcastle? I think that helps a lot. Of course it does. I'd hope we're finally at the stage where the huge cash machine that is the stadium should start bringing significant funds in. And I think when you've got a manager like Conte, anything can happen. And then I think once you start that ball rolling, you become more of a global power, and it all kind of snowballs into more and more titles or trophies. But yes, of course it helps if you can chuck billions into it. Of course it does. What else we got? Craig Dearman asks, if you had a choice between Spurs winning a trophy or starring alongside Harrison Ford in the new Indiana Jones movie, what would you choose? Definitely Spurs winning a trophy, because as awesome as it would be to be alongside Harrison Ford, I would absolutely mess up the movie. So I don't want to mess it up. I'm really looking forward to the new one, James Mangold directing. So no, I wouldn't want to get in the way of what hopefully will be a terrific film. I would love this is when you think about maybe in the future, I would love to interview Harrison Ford one day. I would. Absolutely my acting hero since I was a kid. Indiana Jones, Han Solo, and so much more. Honestly, my favourite actor by a long, long way. He really always has been. So, and also, I think he's mellowed a lot as well. I think he'd be much more fun to interview now as well. I think if you got a real sit down with him, I think he'd be fascinating. So yeah, sorry, whatever, bit of tangent there. Andrew Gregory 1543. Am I the only one who's noticed your subliminal message of support for Ukraine with your settee and blue wall? A couple of other people have said that. It's not. I think it just comes out of the weird colour on the screen. I can see it here. It's like a really grey sofa, but it doesn't really come across that way with a light on it. It's not a subliminal message, I'm afraid. I'm not clever enough to do any subliminal messages. So we'll do one more, I think. What else we got? What else we got? What? Serpy Derpy 4880. We all get soothed by your voice after the chaos of the Spurs performance. Our kids deserve to as well. So if CBeebies approached you to read a children's book, which one would you choose to read? I could probably put some kids to sleep, I'm guessing, with my voice. Which one would you choose to read? Do you know what? My youngest is about to turn 19, so it's been a long, long time since I read a kid's book. I'm trying to think what I used to read them. The Magic Faraway Tree. I remember reading that one. That's a bit too long for CBeebies. The Gruffalo. Gruffalo was a shorter one, wasn't it? I remember that one. But yeah, I don't think, again, like The Jungle, I'm not famous in any way, shape or form. So that is not going to happen. I saw Harry Kane's one. Harry Kane did well. He kind of warmed up as it went on. He started off a little bit like he was reading an essay in class, and as it went on, you could tell he really got into it and relaxed and realised it's just like he was reading a book to his own kids. And I thought he did really well. I love that video of the animation they did of him growing up. It'd be so helpful for so many kids. Right. Do you know what? I think I'll probably kind of head off there because I think everything else I'm looking down is ones that I've already kind of covered before, so I don't want to overlap. I'm just looking at the games tomorrow. Some good games tomorrow. We've got Sonny obviously back in action against Ghana. Richarlison again with Brazil against Switzerland. And Rodrigo Bentancur taking on Cristiano Ronaldo and Portugal. Some crackers. And Cameroon, Serbia in the morning. Won't be too shabby either. So 4 good ones. I'm going to head into London tomorrow, actually, because I want to try and see the Harry Kane exhibit at the Museum of London before the London Wall one closes. So I'm going to try and head up there and see that tomorrow at some point. And then I am meeting Jonathan Veal, who I haven't seen in a little while. He also covered Spurs. I think he's at the darts tomorrow, so I'm going to pop and see him. So yeah, a day in London. So if you see me, please please say hello if you see me. I'll be heading up there to go and see the stuff, and I'll have a little chat about the exhibition maybe in the next video. Probably do one maybe middle of the week. As always, whack your questions in underneath. Try and give me some new ones, stuff that you haven't heard me talk about before, because I don't want to bore you with anything I've already done. Yeah, there you go. Right, I'm going to head off now. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.